Good morning, Washburn County District Attorney and candidate for Washburn County Circuit Court Judge Aaron Marcoux is our very special guest today, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live. Today's conversation is streaming live right here on our DrydenWire Facebook page. As always, if you miss any part of the show, a full replay will be available later today on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/DrydenWire or on our website at DrydenWire.com. With the nonpartisan election only about a month away, we welcome in today's guest, Washburn County District Attorney and candidate for Washburn County Circuit Court Judge, Mr. Aaron Marcoux. Aaron, welcome back. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How you doing?
Fantastic. I was looking.
Amen. Best day ever, right?
Are you one of those that's always positive every morning? Today's the best day of.
Well, I try and be. Honestly, I'm kind of known as the best day ever guy at work when everyone is asked, so, how's your day going? Best day ever, man. And the reality is that I truly believe that. So this is my philosophy when it comes to that, right? Is you can't relive tomorrow. Most people don't want to, or yesterday. You can't relive yesterday, right? Most people don't want to. But tomorrow doesn't exist. Have you ever been to tomorrow? I've never been to tomorrow. I don't know anybody that. So today is the day you got, right? Today's the only day you got, and it's up to you to make it the best day you can make it.
Well, make my day the best day. By the way, I was looking this morning when and this is you're a 5-timer. This is your 5th time you've been on the show.
I was wondering if it was 4 or 5. So
yeah,
it's 5.
It's 5.
I'm glad to be back. I'm very glad to be back.
Yeah, I think Saturday Night Live, they do like a 5-time thing and somebody gets jackets. We don't have any of that.
No awards, no nothing.
No, you get to talk directly to voters. How about that? There's your reward.
That's probably more valuable, right?
Probably better than a jacket. All right. Well, we have you have been on with us before. I think our first time, that was back when we still did in studio, and my dad had just retired, and I think it was like 2019, fall of 2019. You're on back. This is pre-COVID when we were still having in studio guests. That was the first time I'm. So a lot of people have gotten to know you and they know everybody. But for those who don't, why don't we just start there? Kind of do a quick recap. Tell us about you. Born and raised. Your where'd you go to school? Your education. Let's kind of go there.
Okay, the fun stuff. Well, my name is Aaron Marcoux, right? I did most of my schooling in Rice Lake. I grew up over on County Highway M here in Washburn County. But it's one of those weird school districts, kind of like Shell Lake is, where you live in Washburn County, but you go to Rice Lake School. So I did most of my schooling in Rice Lake, graduated from Rice Lake High School. I started at the community college, UW Barron County. From there, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I have to admit that I chased a girl down there. I was going to go to Superior and do governmental studies, but I met a girl when I was doing student government stuff, and she kind of caught my heart, and she said she was going to watch today. So, hi, Elizabeth. She is now my wife, 25 years. We celebrate our anniversary next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 25 years has been a long time. I can't believe she's put up with me that long, but she has. So, thank you. We then both graduated from Milwaukee. We moved out to Wyoming after we were a year apart in college, so I took a job for a moving company. I was one of those guys when you'd get like 2 men in a truck and they'd show up and get all your stuff and move it. I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
So one of my first jobs was to go out to Salt Lake City, Utah. And I admit, I think it's past the statute of limitations. So I have to admit that I didn't know all the commercial driving laws at the time. Good morning, Gay. I didn't know all the commercial driving laws at the time, and I drove 1,000 miles out to Laramie, Wyoming, all in one shot. And I woke up the next morning in my hotel room, and I opened the windows, and just the Rocky Mountains were so magnificent. I fell in love with them instantly.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I told Liz that I think I found where my heart feels like it's home. And that Christmas, I knew I wanted to go to law school, so we took a trip out there, and I brought her to the same hotel, got the exact same hotel room, so that very next morning I could show her what I saw, and she said, yeah, we're doing it. So When we came back, we literally Beverly Hillbillied it out there. I had this old 1988 Ford F-150 extended cab long box, had all our stuff in the back of it, which wasn't much because we were college students, and literally had a rocking chair on top with a tarp. And we took all our stuff and moved out 1,000 miles out west and started a new life together. We got married while we were out there. We had our first two of 6 children while we were out there. I don't know if you can see the sign above us. It says, "This is us," a little bit of crazy, a little bit of loud, and a lot of love. And it's Elizabeth, me, David, Alex, Jackson, Sarah, Damon, and Elliot. Those are our kids. And went to law school. We had 2 children. Elizabeth said it was time to come home. We need to be with family. We're starting our family. She was come from a very close-knit family. And I said, absolutely, let's go back. So we came back. I took a job as a public defender in Ashland, Bayfield, and Iron counties. I worked there for 5 years, spread across the northern part of the state, doing, criminal defense work. I then took a job as the assistant district attorney in Sawyer County, and I was there for just a little under 5 years when I got the call from Madison asking me to be the district attorney in Washburn County. And then in 2019, I came down there.
Yeah, hold on one second here. So you were a public defender, and then you went into, essentially, then you go to be ADA. Why the switch?
Well, it was a couple of different things, to be perfectly honest with you, Ben. My last year as a public defender, I felt myself growing to a point where I didn't feel it was effective use of my tools, and it wasn't where my heart was. I used to have what they call the Defender's Creed, or the Defender's motto, hanging above my desk every day, and I read it every single day. And it basically came down to the point is, if my entire career, all I ever do is help one person, it will be worth it. What I realized as a public defender is that in the end, I kind of cared about the cases more than a lot of people did. There's a lot of people in the justice system who are institutionalized, historical trauma, a lot of those things that are just used to being in the system, and they didn't engage the system in a way that was helping them. I got involved in the treatment courts. I got involved in the Veterans Court in Iron County, the treatment court in Risk Reduction Treatment Court in Bayfield County. I got involved in the Criminal Justice Coordinating Councils. I got as involved as I could, and there just nothing was changing. There was nothing changed. It was just the same thing day in and day out. So my last year, I tested myself, and I did almost exclusively Chapter 980 cases, which are violent sexual predator civil commitment cases and homicide cases across the northern part of the state. And I told myself that if I could handle that and if I could keep that passion, I would stay as a public defender. Well, as we all know, that didn't happen, and I did switch. So the reason why I did switch is because I felt like I wasn't able to effectuate positive change from the public defender side. I would believe that I would be able to affect positive change from the prosecution side, from where things came from. And I believe that I've been able to do that over the last 10 years.
So you were the ADA for about 5 years-ish in Sawyer County. Yep. And that must have been around 2019-ish, early 2019?
2015 to 2019 is when I was there.
Okay, so then, because then a whole bunch of things happened. And I don't remember what timeline this is, but we used to have Gene Harrington as the judge in Washburn County, and then Tom Frost was the district attorney, and then Tom Frost decided, then Angie Winton, who is the judge, and that is your opponent on April 7th. She was the ADA, but those were part-time. Back then, it was still part-time. And then, again, I'm sure I'm forgetting the order of this, but I think then it was Tom Frost decided not to run for re-election, and then I believe Angie ran as district attorney, right? And then that created an opening for you, they needed now an ADA. And is that where you came in? When she was a district attorney and you were ADA? I can't remember. Did that overlap?
I think it technically overlapped by maybe half a second. Good morning, okay. Stacy. So what kind of happened is when the judge spot opened up after Gene Harrington had retired.
Yeah.
It was up for appointment for the governor's office. So I applied for that position. Miss Winton applied for that position. A couple of other people applied for that position. The governor, throughout the process and the interview process, ended up choosing Miss Winton to be the Winton Rowe. I apologize. Congratulations on getting married as well. She got the nod, right? Governor Evers said, "This is who I want to be judge in Washburn County," and I respected that. But what happened after that is, I surprisingly, and very much against the way the system generally works, I got a call from the governor's office. And I was a little confused because I knew that they had appointed Angie. So I asked them what was going on, and they said, "Well, I know that we appointed somebody else for the judge spot, but we very much would like you to be the district attorney there." And I said, "Wow, I thank you for the call to service. I appreciate that." So they called me and asked me if I would be the next district attorney in Washburn County. So how that process had to work is, judge, when you transition from like DA to judge, you can take a break, but when you're a state employee, all your benefits lapse and all that stuff. So
Okay.
traditionally, the morning that you take office in your new office, you resign from your old office, right? Well, at that point, that wouldn't have left anybody really there, because there wasn't an assistant district attorney and the office would have been vacant. So I technically took the assistant district attorney position, I think it was the day that she became judge. And then I
Okay.
became simultaneously the acting district attorney because I was the only person
one
in
there,
the
right?
office. And then we went through the official process and I was appointed.
I think it was like a month after that you were officially then appointed. Like I think
Yes.
this all happened in August, and then you're appointed in September.
Yeah.
I think, and I think then the next
Sounds
month,
right.
that's when it was. It was then that next month in October is when it was the first time that you came on for a show. Got it. So then the ADA. When was it? When did it become full time for an ADA? Because then you had to hire an ADA.
Right. Well, so technically I was the first full-time ADA in Sawyer County. I
Okay.
mean, in Washburn County. I was a full-time Sawyer County ADA because they had full-time position.
Sure.
The position that was split between Washburn and Burnett was 1 day a week that they would fill in and help out in those spots. But then a new legislative session came in with new funding and they created a full position. So technically when I came, I was able to come on full time because I wouldn't have been able, with 6 kids, I wouldn't have been able to come on as a part-time situation.
Sure.
Luckily that position was open and it was there, and then we moved on. So one of my first jobs once I was appointed was replacing myself and finding another assistant district attorney for Washburn County.
Okay. So, and this was 2019. So you've been the DA since 2019. So
Yes, sir.
6 years, over 6 years now, 6.5 years ish.
Yep.
And so you had to run again. Obviously, that must have been
2020 and 2024.
and then 2024. Did you have any opponents in those races?
I did not.
Okay. And did you run? That's a partisan race. Did you run as Republican, Democrat, or Independent?
I ran as an independent.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yep.
I didn't. I don't know why. I don't think I really followed those races that much because there wasn't an opponent, right? It's like, well, it's just okay. Why? What was your reasoning for running as an independent?
It's kind of complicated and it's kind of a long story, but here we go. All right. So
Buckle
back
up.
in 2016, I ran in Barron County for district attorney,
Okay.
and I ran as a Democrat. Now, part of the reason that the decision I made there, and I'll explain that, is I was on the Northwest Anti-Meth Coalition, which was a group of a number of professionals from across the multiple disciplinary team that came from like the Marshfield Clinic. There was a lot of nonprofits. There was law enforcement. There was people from all over that were coming together, and we're trying to address the meth epidemic that we're having in northern Wisconsin. And one of the people that I met that was on there that I used to go to school with when I was younger was Chris Fitzgerald. Well, Chris Fitzgerald, former sheriff of Barron County, explained to me that he thought that I would be a good district attorney in Barron County. and I was getting ready to make a change in my life in 2016. Our fifth child, Damon, had just been born, and we knew we were going to have one more child after that, and our family was going to be complete. So it was time to settle down and dig some roots and figure out where we were going to be in life. And so I had spoken with Chris about that, and I got a call from Mike Bittney, who also asked me to come down and run, and because they were looking for some change at the time. And much like I am right now, back in 2016, I was self-financed. I don't ask other people for money. I'm not doing fundraising or anything like that, and I didn't do it then. Well, I didn't have enough money to run a full-blown election, and with Chris Fitzgerald was a Democrat, and with the Democrat support, I figured that I would run as a Democrat in the primary and try and get my position seated then, because I would be the only name on the ballot. Well, as we went through the process, unfortunately, good morning, Angie. I guess I don't know how to say it, but the morning of the election, the leader of the Democratic Party down there sent out an email to everybody and said that I had Republican support and to vote against me because they thought that the Republican Party was going to try and influence the election. So basically, I got railroaded at the very end. I ended up losing the election by 22 votes, less than 1%. It was extremely tight. And that left a bad taste in my mouth. So when the governor's office came and called and asked me to be district attorney, I clearly knew that Governor Evers was a Democrat, and he had just taken over the governor's office, and I still had a little bit of that taste in my mouth. And I looked at the position and I realized that, when you're sheriff or when you're judge or when you're district attorney, you don't get to look at somebody and say, oh, you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, so I'm not going to serve you. You're not going to get access to the system. You're not going to get whatever it is. You serve everybody. We're a small community. We're 17,000 people, right? We're all neighbors. We're all, whether you're up in Minot or down in Shell Lake or over in Serona or wherever it is, we're all neighbors. Everybody has equal access to that justice system, and that justice system needs to be about service, and it needs to be about integrity. And so I decided to run on my own as my own in 2020 and 2024 and stand out as an independent, and that I wasn't going to do that.
Isn't that interesting? First of all, I appreciate your honesty and your candor about it, and your willingness to talk about it seriously. Because that is something. I've had several people running for offices in our region over the last decade that have actually asked me, do you think I should run as a independent or and fill in the blank, Republican or a Democrat? Because, well, in this particular county, it is more Republican, so maybe I should run as a Republican. And my advice is always run for what, if you're really strongly Republican, run as a Republican. And if you're strongly a Democrat, run as a Democrat. But it's the thing that nobody really wants to talk about. It's saying the quiet part out loud. Is sometimes that's a factor, especially when you consider these races. These aren't like legislative positions. Does it really matter? I mean, it does to voters. I understand that, and to people, they can. I get all that. But honestly, whether it's Republican or a Democrat, as a DA or as a judge or as a sheriff, there really isn't that much of a difference. Would you agree?
Well, there shouldn't be, right?
But there is.
There can be. Like it was said earlier in a different interview, you're influenced by your family and how you're brought up, and those are the values that you're taught, and those are instilled in you, and that's typically the way your mindset is and how you think. Now, you can approach cases differently. That mindset, those filters are going to do that, and there's going to be some that might be more liberal on charging decisions or more conservative on charging decisions or what the recommendations might be. So your values are going to influence the decision making that you have. I have to admit it because it's the truth. But back in 2016, I was naive to a lot of those systems. I spent the last 10 years of my life working on building a family. I didn't have internet, and I didn't watch the news, and I didn't do all that stuff because I didn't want to be distracted when I came home. I had these beautiful children and this beautiful family that was there, and that's what deserved my attention, not those distractions. And I was a little bit naive when I went into it. And honestly, when that email came out, that opened my eyes to a lot of the way the reality of the political world is. And that's just the way it is. And over the last 10 years, I mean, just think about what's happened in the last 10 years in this country and what's happened and going on. And I realized where my values do align and what they're most consistent with and what those are. And those have solidified in me. Grounded and rooted in faith. That's the primary one that gives me all of my foundation that I move forward on, and how I treat people, how I try and interact with one another, dignity, respect, kindness, proceeding with love as my primary goal, and trying to express that in all of my actions and my words. And, that's a process. Sanctification is a process that lasts a lifetime. But those values and how those are reflected, I think that's clearly aligned. I think that it's clear in common culture and in the politics of the day, in what we've seen in the last several election cycles in our country and what's going on in Minneapolis and around the world. It's clear where things are and what's going on and who people are. I think the mask and the veils have been removed, so to speak, and it's very clear to see who's for who and what they're for and what they stand for.
Do you think the sheriff, a judge, and district attorney races and offices, do you think those should all be partisan, all be nonpartisan, or keep it as is, where the sheriffs and district attorneys are partisan races and the judge is nonpartisan?
My personal opinion, I think they should all be nonpartisan at that level. At that level, up to the county level, I think it should be nonpartisan. Like you were saying, when we get to the legislative, when we get to the state level, the assemblies, the Senate, all of that stuff, I think that partisanness is appropriate. It's a representative type of government at that time, right? You're representing the opinions and the values of the people who elected you. When you're at local county government levels, like a district attorney, a sheriff, or a judge, you're serving everybody equally. It's about service. Bottom line, the courthouse, the people own the courthouse. The courtroom, that's the community's courtroom. You know what I mean? They own that. It's their trust. They are trusting us to operate it effectively, efficiently, and to make sure that it is working in such a way that it's available to them when they need it. Law enforcement goes out and serves everybody. Whoever makes that call, whoever picks up the phone and says, I need your help, they are on their way, lights and sirens, ready to help, and they're putting themselves on the line for everybody. And when the judge sits in the courtroom at that elevated seat and presides over a hearing and over a dispute, no matter what it is, they're doing so impartially. It has nothing to do with who they voted for president in the last election, or who they didn't vote for, or what they did or didn't do. They are there completely impartially. And I think at that level, I really do think it should be nonpartisan, because you're there to serve everybody all the time, no matter what.
Well, and that gets into the judge's race. You decided to run for judge. Actually, we'll get to that in a second. I have one more question. I jotted this down. Actually, Dave Wilson asked this question to your opponent on the show a couple weeks ago. And it's a similar question, but obviously there's a topic of the jail in Washburn County. We're housing out a lot because of all these new classifications the DOC has now put on the jail. So we went from everything is fine to all of a sudden, okay, nope, it isn't. Just because somebody decided to make that decision. And now all these counties are kind of going, we don't have the kind of capacity to do that. How much has that impacted the district attorney's office? And how much has that impacted you? Has that changed anything for you from when you, in 2019, 2020-ish to 2026? Does that have any influence? Like, I don't know what you do, but I'm not going to do it this way or charge this way, because then they have to. Does that have any impact on your decision-making and the process of the district attorney's office? Is knowing that some of these people are going to have to housed out?
Does that influence my decisions or my recommendations? No. Has it influenced the process that I go through in getting ready for a hearing? That it does.
Because
Okay, so a lot of it I think is about fiscal responsibility, and we have to understand. So just a couple weeks ago, we had 3 pretty significant cases. 2 individuals had requested. Hi, Jeannie. Thank you very much. We had 2 individuals that were down in Dodge Correctional Facility that requested that they be in person. So we are obligated to give them a ride. They have the absolute right to be in person. And there was another hearing that we had that the jail didn't have enough staff so that they were able to go get that person. So they had to hire an outside agency to go get that individual. Well, that particular individual, we knew that his attorney wasn't going to be present. We knew that we weren't going to be able to get anything done effectively as far as moving the case forward. One of the individuals that was coming up from Dodge had made a specific request, part of their case that they had the right to do, that also made that case more of a scheduling case than anything that was going to happen substantively. When I spoke with Gretchen, who is the jail administrator, she explained to me that it cost almost $5,000 to go pick up the person from the mental hospital for that particular case. And I believe it was 62 or 64 man hours were spent getting the other person there. So if you do that math, you're getting, in 2 days, you're doing 62 hours between 2 different people. We're talking overtime. We're getting decent pay, 20 some bucks an hour. The county almost spent $10,000 to have 2 status conferences and a preliminary hearing. Now, sometimes that has to happen. People have rights. You have to protect those rights, enforce those rights, and honor those rights. But what it's done is, knowing that we have all these transports, knowing that it's costing the county a lot of money, what I've been doing and engaging in the process of is speaking with the other side, the defense attorney, early, and saying, what is it that you want from these hearings? If your person is in custody, can they be done by Zoom? Is your client willing to do that, or are you willing to do that? Do you need them to be in person? What is it going on? Because I know that there is a significant expenditure that's being made at the county level. And honestly, I got to be honest, I'm probably a little selfish in that, because I'm a taxpayer in this county. So I'm also on that end having to pay for that. And I see those bills racking up and racking up and racking up. And I know that there's little things that we can do, basic communication skills that we can exercise, that will help reduce that cost to the county. Now, that I have engaged in. Whether or not I will not make a jail or a prison recommendation to the court for them to rule on, or for them to consider when they're ruling, that doesn't affect that. That is outside of that. It's an unfortunate situation that the Department of Corrections has restricted our capacity down to like 9 people that we're allowed to have there. And the other end of that is it's not just that it's 9 people that we can have there. That's the problem. Is when we have 9 people, we're basically a holding facility, so we can get people in and out of court when we are honoring those rights, which means we don't have time with these individuals, which means we can't offer programming in the jail. We can't do things that we know are actually going to be effective in modifying their behavior so that they will hopefully disengage from the system. We have to get them, and then we send them back to Polk, or we send them to Bayfield, or we send them to Barron, and then we just hope maybe they have some programming. So there's a lot of other trickle-down effects because of these decisions that have been made and the position that Washburn County has been put in that are having a negative effect on us. It's not just fiscal.
But that's wise that you recognize that, and you're trying to anticipate a lot of these things. I think that's brilliant what you're doing about identifying right up front and talking to the defense attorney to kind of map it out a little bit. I just want to throw up good morning, Nate. And there was this kind of goes back to the conversation a little earlier, but from Shabana. She's Ora County Clerk, Register of Deeds, Treasurer, or Clerk of Courts. We all do our jobs as outlined in state statute and ordinance. It's a job, but we have to run partisan because we are the extension of the state. Didn't think about that those are states, so they have to run as in partisan races.
They're executive office positions, right? So they come through the executive office of the state. The district attorney is an executive position, which is also part of the reason why a district attorney cannot receive a raise within the 4-year term that they have. Whatever their pay rate is at the beginning of their 4-year term is at the end of it. They can only potentially get a raise once every 4 years. precisely because they're part of the executive branch. So if the governor and legislature put together a package that gives them more money, well, then that's sort of bribery is kind of what it's looked at.
Interesting. So you decided after 6 years to run for judge. There's a current judge there now. Obviously, Angie, your opponent. How did you come to that decision? Was it a long time coming, or kind of a woke up one day kind of a thing and said, you know what, I know what I'm going to do, honey. I'm running for judge.
No, it wasn't a spur of the moment decision by any means. It is something that had been building for a while. In fact, I thought about running in, I guess it would have been 2020, the first go around in the first election after the appointment process. And I'll be honest with you, I prayed about it and I was really tempted to do it. Politically, at that point in time is when my opponent would have been most vulnerable. Hadn't had a contested election, you wouldn't have gone through those things. But I prayed about it. And what I received in my prayer was to be still. And I wasn't sure what that meant, but I knew that was what I needed to do. So I didn't run. I stayed there. And I have learned a lot of things over the last 6-7 years as district attorney that have been valuable for the bench. But I had a lot of personal things that happened to me as well that I had to grow through and learn how to handle a loss of a father, a loss of a brother, how to be able to function through those grief periods and still be able to provide a service to the community and do those things to deepen in my faith and to gain a greater understanding of what it means to act with integrity at all times, even when nobody's looking at you, to do the right thing for the right reasons, just because it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? And not try and get away with something if you think that no one's looking, or use positions for your advantage, or, to become a person that is solid and grounded and rooted and will be that exact same person. Like my goal right now, this is my primary goal, is the election is on April 7th, right? My goal is to be the exact same person on April 8th as I was on April 6th. In one of the articles I put on your webpage, right? It's on DrydenWire. Titles change, things change, but the person shouldn't change. And that's my goal, and that's my commitment. Is I've sat in this position for 7 years. I've been able to streamline some processes, get things working in the district attorney's office that have been able to make that office more efficient from when I inherited it, and have it running at a smoother and better pace. I see the system. I've been in this job now for 15 years in the court system every single day. When I was out in Wyoming, I had some amazing opportunities, and I was an extern law clerk for the Chief Justice of the Wyoming Supreme Court. I was at the Attorney General's office for 2 years. I worked at the largest district attorney's office in the state. I had some amazing opportunities. I've been in private practice where I've done divorces and guardianships and been in termination of parental rights. I've seen the system from every different angle. So now for over 15 years, I've been in this thing every single day. And part of it is still government. Government is not very efficient. It's just part of the nature of it. But it doesn't mean that it can't be. And I've seen where the system does well. There are things that are going very well in Washburn County. It's not like all four wheels have fallen off the car and this ship is sinking. That's not what I'm trying to come out here and say. But I'm saying that there are a few wobbly things, and there are a couple parts that can be tightened up here. You gotta find a high horsepower motor. It needs tuning regularly. You've got to go into that, and you got to constantly be fixing things and adjusting things to make it work at its peak efficiency. And I think that that's something that I can bring to the bench. And again, Ben, I've always tried to be open and honest, and I have no reason to hide anything. There's been 2 judgeships that have come up in neighboring counties over the last couple of years, and that kind of raised my interest. There was Sawyer County, which I spent 5 years there, have a lot of friends there, have a lot of connections there. The other one was Barron County, where I went to school there. I have a lot of friends there. I have a lot of connections there. Made a lot of friends in 2016 when I went through that process. It would have been easy to do that. But this is home. Washburn County is home. This is where my children go to school, all 6 of them. This is where I'm the basketball coach, and I've coached football, and I've coached baseball. This is where our life is. This is where we are. And I asked my children, I said, what do you think about going to Sawyer or going to Barron or doing all this other stuff? And they said, Dad, that this is our home. Mm-hmm. So I knew several years ago, a couple years ago anyways, that when this came up, that it was going to be the time that I was going to throw my hat in the ring. And if the people of Washburn County feel that I reflect their values and they feel like I'm the person that they want on the bench with a steady character and integrity and working hard for them, earning their trust, knowing the responsibility of what the bench actually means to the community and how they should be served. And if they choose me to do that, I will be honored and I will love it. And if they don't, and they say, no, the way things have been going are the way we want it, then they know who to vote for and they know how to do that. And that's great. But the deal is the next day, I'm going to be the same person. The next day, I'm still going to come into the office and I'm still going to be dedicated to Washburn County. And I'm still going to do everything that I can to make the district attorney's office the most effective district attorney's office it can be, and make sure that it's open and continuously serving its people, because that's what I'm dedicated to no matter what.
The district attorney's office is a pretty well-oiled machine at this point, largely contributed, obviously, what you've done in the last 6 years. I think you have like 3.5 staff, right? I think it's
we've got an assistant district attorney. We've got
a full-time assistant district attorney.
Yep. Full-time district attorney, 3.5 staff, and a victim witness coordinator. You can't forget Tam.
Yep, right. So that's why, though? What about the why run for judge? I mean, a lot of people would say, hey, because you're a district attorney in Washburn County, this is your home. Why not just stay district attorney? You got a pretty good gig. It's running well. Why?
Complacency has never been a part of my DNA, Ben. It just hasn't. You know, if I was just going to stand in line and continue to do everything that's been done before me and just fall in line, then I would be a janitor. Okay. My grandpa was a farmer and a janitor at the local elementary school. My dad was the janitor at the Rice Lake High School. I've pushed a broom. I've also pushed a scraper when I was cleaning barn stalls and aisles and farms when I was working as a dairy farmer through college. Or through high school. I've done that stuff. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, let alone law school. I've got a drive inside of me that's continuously moved me forward onto the next thing. Another one of my articles, one of the lessons that my dad taught me was always to leave things better than when you found it. And when you get to a place where you've left things better than you found it, as I have with the district attorney's office at this point, it's time to go on and make something else better.
Yeah,
let someone else put there and revel in it.
Yeah, I remember when before DrydenWire, I used to run businesses like Blockbuster. I think I ran a Papa Murphy's for, and they're all like around like 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And when I would sit down in the career I had right before this, I was running a car dealership, and I sat down and they said, "So where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I said, "Not here." Yeah, and that's it got a really bizarre look from the district manager who's asking me, and he goes, "Okay, okay, why?" I'm like, "Well, I'm either going to be your boss or you're going to fire me within like 3 or 4 years, because honestly, it's going to take me 3 or 4 years to turn this around and make this a very profitable location, and then it's what's next." Right? Mm-hmm. What's next? Because I kind of get a little burnt out after that, because I've done everything I could possibly do. We've taken it to where we need to take it. Let somebody else kind of put their stamp in it and take it how they want to take it. But I want that next challenge. And it seems like that's kind of where you are at this point. 6 years, it's what's next. I've done it here.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And like I said, we've done some amazing things at the district attorney's office, and I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to do. and the processes that we put in place and how the office functions. It's like you're a business manager. You put those things in place, right? You develop systems so that if you have to replace a cog in the wheel, you can replace it and the system still works. You don't set up a system so that if one piece of it falls apart, the entire thing falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
You set up a system so that if something falls apart, it can still function and be easily replaced. That's why Henry Ford said, if everybody agreed to buy their replacement parts from me, I'd give everybody in America a free car, because the money's in the replacement parts. It's how you it's how you design the system so that it works, so you can replace those parts so the entire system doesn't break down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've done. And that's where I believe the district attorney's office is right now. The staff know exactly what to do and how to do it and how to be effective and great. And I mean, sure, do we make mistakes? Yeah, we make a couple of mistakes, you know what I mean, throughout the year. But if you look at the thousands of cases that we process and you make a handful of mistakes, we're going at like 99.6% efficiency, right? So how many businesses have you run that you would be excited about them running at 99.6% efficiency?
I'd be very happy, very happy.
You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. So like I said, I'm not just going to sit here and look and go, look at what I've made. This is so beautiful. This is great. And then just sit there. It's like, okay, this system is operational. I now need to raise somebody else up so that they can come into this position. And it's time for me to move on to the next one so that I can work on that one and try and recreate and multiply.
So you have identified the judge's office in Washburn County as there are some things that I would want to fix. So let's kind of talk about your vision first. Oh, there's Dad actually. Be still and no. Dad.
No, you're right, Terry. You're right. It was one of the most frustrating responses that I've gotten through prayer is when he says, just sit down, son. Just sit down. It's tough to sometimes say, yes, sir, and just sit down. But it's true.
So you've identified some things in the Washburn County, the judicial aspect of this. What are those things? You're elected judge. What are voters? How are they going to know what you're doing? I mean, what are the issues that you think that if I'm elected judge and the voters, if you vote for me for judge, this is what I'm going to do and here's why. And is that different than what's currently happening? This is one of those compare and contrast. It's not a critical thing. It's not like, oh, my opponent sucks. It's not that. It's I would do it this way, and I think this is the best way. What are those things?
Well, I think the best way to care, if you want to compare and contrast the two different candidates that are there, it's not going to be by what legal decisions are going to be made, right? The law dictates what the decisions are. Yeah. We're both very intelligent individuals. We both know what the law says. It's a bit of a filter, right? So you put in the facts and it comes down and you listen to those and you apply the law. You apply it evenly and fairly. The reality is the vast majority of the decisions are going to be the same. That's not the difference. The biggest difference is going to be our values and how those are reflected in the operations of the court system. I'm sorry to drag you into this that way, but you're a county board member. So You see the things that are spent, you see the budgets, you see where they're at and what's going on. Our spending countywide is a lot. It's a lot based on the budget that we had. I remember going in for a budget cycle several years ago and we had like $4 million in reserves. It was almost like a half a year or a year. Like you look at good budgeting, they tell you to have an emergency money set aside. They tell you to have 3 to 6 months of money set aside. If there's a tragedy, there's all this other stuff. You know what I mean? And we as a county government were very efficient. We put those principles to use and we had that money in reserve. Now we don't. And then you have to look at and ask why. And you ask, where's the spending going? What is it doing? Well, there's been a lot of spending in the courthouse over the last several years as well. We've remodeled, we've upgraded, we've done a lot of stuff. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent on those things. Now, some of them were necessary. Some of them were things we could provide, but we didn't have to provide. So that fiscal responsibility aspect of my value set, treating everybody with kindness and dignity and respect, when they're in the courtroom, regardless of where they're from. That's my value set, doing those kind of things. So when it comes to setting up the processes and looking, and like I said earlier, trying to even use my position as district attorney to get ahead of and anticipate where those costs and those operations are going to be to try and minimize those for the county. It's not all about money. I know I'm talking a lot about money, but it's not. It's the way the court operations work. You can set the systems up. You need to work with the public defender's office so that we can get attorneys in an efficient, timely manner appointed to cases so that cases aren't getting drug out. We're 60 to 90 days in between hearings in cases, which is part of the reason why it takes so long to get some things done. We can streamline those processes. And I've tried to even help do that from the district attorney's office. I get my offer letters out half of the time before the initial appearance. I get communications as soon as they're within a matter of days, if not hours, from when there's an attorney appointed. Our office is reaching out and talking to them. We don't hold back discovery for to play games. That in the process, the defense is not entitled to discovery, the information that I have, until after the arraignment in a felony case or an initial appearance in a misdemeanor case. We don't hold that back. We tell them right away, hey, we got an order saying that you're on the case. Here's the information. Here's what we're doing. Here's an offer. Please get up to speed as soon as you can. And this is what we want to do. We try and get all of that stuff done. That's some of the major differences in the processes that I've done in the district attorney's office, is doing the hard work ahead of time. So that when the case gets started, when you push that magic button on the justice system factory and all the wheels start turning and the smoke starts coming out of the stacks, right? That the work is done so it can just be there. You don't wait and do things along the process. You get that done. That's the exact type of thing that I'm going to bring to the court, and preparedness and preparation, and look at getting the system done ahead of time so that we're prepared. Like I said, I've worked in a multitude of different courts. I've seen a lot of different ways different judges handle things, the way different states handle things. There's different things that we can do with status conferences and communication between attorneys and those kind of things that can get the process moving. If we can just shave one of those hearings off, we can shorten our timelines by 90 days. And the reason that that's important is because victims and witnesses need justice as well. We've changed our laws. We have Marcy's law. We have Chapter 950 victim rights laws. They have a right to a speedy disposition just as much as the defendant does, because they have the right to get their life back in order, to recover from what they've done. And it's like Martin Luther King says, justice delayed is justice denied. Now, are there times where you need to slow down and make sure that you communicate with somebody to understand that their rights, what they are, and what they're waiving when they enter a plea or decide to go to trial or not? Yes, you need to have that communication. You need to have that interaction with the individual, but that's not what's slowing down the process. There are some other things that are going. I'll just mention one of them is like our drug court. Our drug court is almost all ATRs. That means they're alternatives to revocation, which means that they've been gone through the court system. Mm-hmm. They've been put on probation. They screwed up on probation. And now they're getting one last chance that says, if you don't complete the Washburn County drug court, then we're going to revoke you. Then we're going to send you back to the judge for sentencing again, or we're going to send you to prison. I've seen models and been part of models like the Bayfield County Risk Reduction Treatment Court, where we actually did all that work ahead of time. It was the defense attorney, the prosecutor, the drug court team that put it together, and then they went in and they worked with the criminal justice coordinator and came up with a case management plan, and then they proposed it as part of the court process. They did the work ahead instead of behind. And in my experience, which is only 15 years, but I think that's quite a bit, that was much more effective in positive change. We know with evidence-based decision-making that if you're going to interject yourself into somebody's life, it needs to be swift, it needs to be certain, it needs to be close to the time when the action occurred, right? So we're trying to modify behavior, the criminal act, years after it's been engaged in, instead of right when it happens. That's why in other treatment courts, we have 30 days to get the case to sentencing and into the treatment process from the day of the event that it happened, not 9 months, not 18 months, not
It could
36
be that
months.
long.
Well, if you look at an individual who's been put on probation and done it and they're getting an ATR, it
I
can be
see.
years away from what the actual criminal act to the point that they're getting that level of intervention. And that leaves our community at risk during that period of time.
I didn't want to bring that up, but I was literally just thinking that. I'm like, it's bad for them. I don't want to say it out loud, but it's kind of bad for the community, or could potentially be bad for the community. Like, nobody wins in that scenario.
I don't think it's the way that particular aspect of this system should work. I think that I've been advocating for this change for 6 years. This is not a secret. One of the very first things I came in, I said, I don't like the way that works. I don't think that it follows evidence-based decision making. Do we use evidence-based decision making in the team? Yes, absolutely. Every time we get evaluated for our TAD funding and all that other stuff, we make the changes. We have a great team. The team is made up of members of the Department of Human Services, the Public Defender's Office, treatment providers, law enforcement, the district attorney, and the judge is also on the team. The team does good work, and they work hard with these individuals. I'm not saying the work that they're doing is ineffective at all. They are doing great and amazing work. What I'm saying is when they're getting the opportunity to do their work is the wrong timing. We need to get that work done in the front of the action and the behavior and closely associated to that point in time instead of way after we've tried all these other resources that we quite frankly know aren't very effective to begin with. We're putting off the inevitable. So why? Let's just deal with it right now.
And that has been successful in other places.
Yes, absolutely. I've been a part of those courts.
And what would it take to do that? Is this like a 6-year process?
The drug court. No, well, to be honest, to be the most effective, we would have to run everyone that we have through the drug court now through the drug court. We would probably have to not start taking individuals or slow taking them until we work through setting up the new system. It's not that there's a whole bunch of new pieces that are going to have to be created to do it. It's reorganizing the pieces that are already there. You know what I mean? And that's basically what it is. But it's going to be difficult to run a court that's been structured this way and restructure it at the same time. Yeah. Can it be done? Yes, if we're all dedicated to doing it and we understand that there's bumps and problems we're going to have to work through and we can do it as a team side by side, absolutely we can accomplish it. It just might be easier if we let the people that are in there experience the process that they become accustomed to. Lop that off at the end, right? Like if you ever been skiing, when the chairlift is about to be done, they put a sign on it that says this is the last one. So we put a sign on that chairlift that says this is the last one. Sure. We run them through and then we set up the new structure and we start. That might be a little bit easier. But like I said, it's not about creating new pieces. It's about reorganizing what's already there so that it's more effective and it's more efficient.
Well, we're already getting we went past our regular time. Which is great. I love all this, but I wanted to touch several different times. I was just kind of taking notes. You mentioned faith. I kind of want to end on that. We talked about like conservative, liberal. A lot of people that's what matters to them, right? Because as a candidate, you don't get to pick and choose what voters care about. But sometimes that is what they care about. Are you a conservative, or you Republican, or you're a Democrat, independent? We've kind of gone through all of that. But another thing, especially for a judicial race, is your faith. There's a lot of faith-based people in our community in Washburn County that they hear, oh, you're a man of faith. All right. That's important to me as a voter. But there's also, I'm assuming, voters in Washburn County who hear, oh, I was going to vote for you, but you're a man of faith. That whole God thing, you're a Bible thumper, Jesus freak. Nope, I'm out. How do you answer those? Why are you bringing up faith and being so open about that when you know that could politically hurt you? It could help you, but it could hurt you.
Well, Ben, you've been a part of our last 4 interviews, haven't you?
I have.
Is it ever anything that I've ever shied away from?
Never once.
It's part of who I am. And if that doesn't reflect your values and you feel that that's something that's off-putting and you want something else, then I'm going to tell you this right now. If that's you and you feel that me as a man of God is offensive, I love you. That's all I'm going to say. You know what I mean? I love you too as much as I love anybody else, and I'm still here to serve you as district attorney and hopefully as judge. I'm here for you, and if you ever need the system, I'm going to be right here so that when you need it, I will be here to help you. That people have their own preferences, and it's going to be what it's going to be, but I'm not going to change because I'm trying to cater to somebody else. That's who I am.
You're not going to sentence people to like 30 days in church?
That might be a good idea. I've never really thought of anything like that. But my faith, to understand my faith and how it does, the Bible isn't going to dictate the legal outcome. The law is going to dictate the legal outcome, right? My faith informs who I am and how I'm going to treat people and how we're going to move forward in the criminal justice case. And like I said, it's going to be with love, kindness, gentleness, respect.
Sounds boring.
Yeah, but it's real world. I'm sorry. Like you might have heard before, I didn't have internet. I didn't have cable. I didn't have any of all that other stuff. I'm not interested in that outside craziness. I'm not interested in making headlines for headlines' sake. Part of this election, I've never had social media before this. I had to get a Facebook account. I made my first public post on a Facebook thing and doing that stuff. And it's part of the election cycle and you got to do it. But that's not who I am. I'm here to do the work. I'm here to do the work and leave something better behind than what I found, and to serve people in the process with kindness and humility, and to stand side by side with them in their good times and their bad. We've got somebody coming up that I was honored that she invited me to go to her year sobriety celebration. She was in our drug court. She went through everything and it was great. And she hit a hard patch and she stumbled and she relapsed, but she got back on that horse. And next month she's celebrating her year sobriety. And she said, Aaron, I would like you to be there. And I mean, honestly, I'm choking up a little bit because what an honor. You know what I mean? And that's just because when times were tough, she was treated with kindness and dignity and respect. I make recommendations to the court for prison all the time. And there's people that get upset about that. And I've made this comment and I've made this recommendation and said it is, second half of the Bible, most of it was written from a prison cell. Just if you found faith, if you found these things, just because you're in jail doesn't mean that you're not going to have access to it. You did something that was bad, sometimes atrocious, sometimes horrible. And that debt to the community still needs to be paid. Just because you found the Lord, just because you found whatever it is in a jail cell, doesn't mean that gets wiped away. Now, it might in a spiritual realm, but in this physical realm here, you still have a debt to pay to the community. And it's the judge's job to make sure that that's enforced. Mm-hmm. And I will not hesitate from doing that.
Well, you should talk to some of the people that email us. It's because the court, sometimes it takes a while for things to get done. We'll do a story about excuse me, a crime of court story, someone's arrested, whatever, and charged for something. And then we're still doing things from like 3 years ago. We're still, and there's a lot of reasons for that, that some of these take a very long time. But then it's, hey, my little Johnny, he found God and he did all this and his life is different now. I'm like, but I'm not passing judgment or opinion, but sometimes this stuff takes a while. But I never looked at it that way, but you still... It's an interesting perspective. Where can people go and find out more about you and your campaign?
Thank you. Marcoux, MARCOUX 2026.com is our website. Facebook, Marcoux for Judge. Instagram, Marcoux for Judge. And DrydenWire. I'm posting things regularly on DrydenWire and our ads are there. Check out the newspapers. We got all that stuff coming out. The election is just a month and 4 days away, so all the advertising is going to be hitting up. And if you see me at a basketball game, baseball season's starting to crank up. If you see me somewhere else, just stop and say hi. Let's talk, and I'll explain to you what's going on and why. And thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to serving you as Washburn County's next circuit court judge.
And if you're, and by the way, if you don't win the election, I think you still stay the DA, don't you, till the next election on that?
Yep. Next election's 2020.
Let me ask you, if you're elected judge, are you going to stop coming on for chats with us? Because some judges don't like doing that.
I'm not afraid of it, Ben. In fact, I saw Positive Tuesdays and Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I was like, man, can we get Marcoux Mondays? Or can we, like, what do we got to do, man? I have enjoyed these conversations. I know we're running over. I think we're at an hour right now, you know what I mean? But that's the thing is we just talk and we can go through this stuff and have these open and honest conversations. There are things a lot of people don't want to talk about, but the truth is light, you know, and light needs to be shined on these things. Things aren't going to change. Things aren't going to get better unless we at least acknowledge what the problems are.
Well, I've always appreciated you. You're my brother in Christ. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a blessed day.
Awesome. A special thank you to Washburn County District Attorney and candidate for Washburn County Circuit Court Judge Aaron Marcoux for taking the time to come on for a chat with us this morning. I'll see all of you right back here this Thursday, March 5th at 8:30 a.m. when North of 8 Design and Marketing founder Emily Gall will join me once again for our latest episode of That's Debatable. Until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and have a blessed day.